For our last vegetable dish for today, it's going to be green beans, mushroom, and tomatoes that Sam is actually cutting in half so we can use them. It's very important to talk about the way we cook these vegetables to make them healthy. And the reason why it is important is mushrooms are like sponges and they have a lot of air pocket and they trap a lot of oil. So when we cook mushrooms, usually when a person cooks mushrooms, they have a tendency to put oil in the pan, and because the mushroom will absorb the oil, they keep adding because they have a feeling it's dry, and they keep adding, and soon enough they'll use half a cup of oil for maybe a cup of mushroom, which would make it not very healthy and oily. So for the mushroom, I've sliced them just across this way. I think they cook evenly. If the mushroom is big like this one, you could just do it in half and then coarse. They will shrink, as you know. Mushroom, you can start with a cup, you'll end up with little because most of it is water and water evaporates. So the technique to get delicious food but eliminate the amount of oil / butter that you might use is to cook them in advance with the pan that has absolutely nothing. Here's the pan, and I'm not going to put anything. It's a non-stick pan. I'm going to put it back. I preheated it so it's hot. I'm going to be very courageous. I'm going to put my vegetables in it, and you're going to say she's mad, but I'm not. She's not mad. The vegetables went in the pan, and soon enough, I don't know if you can hear it, they kind of sizzle because they have water, and water will start coming out of the vegetables. And to expedite, so you're not going to stay half hour and tell me it took you a while, I'm going to do a splash of water on high heat. I'm doing a splash of water, and the water will get it going. Of course, don't be afraid because using high heat will cause the water to evaporate. So you're basically steaming the vegetable at this point. I'm not putting my oil now. The reason why not, because I want to control the amount of oil that I'm putting, and by putting the oil at the end of the vegetables when they are almost cooked, I'll preserve the flavor, it'll be fresher, and I used probably a quarter of what I would be using. So for the moment, I'm going to let them hang here, and I do want to salt it a little bit. Salt draws water from any vegetable. So when you cook and you want to expedite, I'm going to put a little bit on top. I'm not going to disturb it and put it in the bottom. I'm just going to put a little bit on the top. If you decided to do this dish a day before and serve it the next day, you would bring the vegetable to the point where it's pliable. You see, when I bend this, it'll be pliable. They will continue to cook tomorrow when you warm it up. So at this point, I would stop and leave the vegetable as is and finish the dish the next day. So at this point, you can just remove this, cool it, store it in the refrigerator, bring it back to a boil the next day when it's in this, because a couple more minutes and they will be completely cooked. And then you will proceed with the tomatoes. The tomatoes cannot be sliced the day before because the tomatoes has a lot of juice inside them, and if I slice them the day before, I'm going to lose half of the juices. So the tomato portion has to be done the same day that you're cooking. So you can prepare your vegetables by washing them, cutting them, getting them all ready to go, except of the tomato. And then we can say they can add herbs, fresh herbs if they want, oregano, whatever they want. You could see that I'm creating a hot spot in the middle of my pan. And now it's the first time where I'm introducing my oil. This is how I control how much. I'm going to put a little bit, not even a tablespoon of oil right in the middle. And I'm going to wait until the oil sizzles. before Sam gives the tomatoes, I might not use all of the tomatoes, but I'm waiting for the oil to be hot so I can put some of my tomatoes in the middle. And I want them to. The tomatoes don't have to be fully cooked, but it's your preference. You can let them wilt further. Just pay attention of the rest of the vegetables that are. At this point, I'm going to drizzle oil, my other tablespoon, on top of the vegetables. I'm controlling completely the amount of oil that goes there. For the whole entire dish, we must have used maybe a tablespoon and a half, not even. I'm going to salt and pepper the tomatoes just so they can be delicious. Like we said, anything that is not going to be delicious, nobody's going to eat it. And at the very, very last, we're going to add a teaspoon or a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. You may skip the balsamic and use fresh herbs of your choice. Thyme, oregano, whatever you find that your preference of flavor. I like the balsamic. It gives it a little bit of acidity and sweetness. At this point, move the tomatoes around just to let them caramelize a little bit. And everything is done on high heat at all time. Absolutely high heat from the beginning till the end. You're not going to be worrying about burning or caramelizing the vegetables because it has so much water that it'll take a long, long time before anything can happen to them. The dish would be ready before we can reach the point where they caramelize. So high heat at all time. And I can see that the pan is getting drier and drier. You can visualize it. The tomato has to stay for about 5 minutes at the most. We are looking for them to just wilt slightly. This is not a dish where it is a cooked tomatoes. It's just lightly, so they can get the same texture. I'm moving around the other vegetable just to see where I'm at. For example, look how this is caramelizing already. See this piece of mushroom? Already has caramelization. And caramelizing is the flavor. We're not using cream, we're not using butter, so we're not using a technique to compensate for all those things. And the dish is almost ready. I'm going to splash a little bit of my balsamic vinegar, as much or as little, but I found out that a little goes a long way. So you can always add later. So splash, I would say about a good teaspoon. And then if you feel that you want to put more after you plate your dish, you can always add. Basically, the dish is ready to be placed. The tomatoes, as you can see, slightly wilted. The green beans are al dente. And if you want to, it's a very colorful. The mushrooms are totally cooked, all in high heat, as I showed you. The dish maybe have 2 tablespoons of oil for the entire dish. We started with the oil from the get-go, it will have been absorbing much more. So this is a technique that is good for a lot of other vegetables. You start cooking them without your oil, and you can introduce the oil at the very end. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.